So, as we focus in on social thinking or cognition as a part of social psychology, a lot of time is spent on trying to determine attitude formation. So, what attitudes do you have? How can we evaluate the strength of those attitudes? What factors kind of played into it? And psychology has broken that down into a few different aspects. And then after that, we look at how can our attitudes predict our behaviors and how can our behaviors predict our attitudes. So, we're going to focus in just on attitudes. When we look at self perception theory, it's a little bit of a weird theory because it says that we look at our own behavior to determine what our attitudes are. So that sort of like suggests that you did something, there was an action or behavior, and then you step back and you're kind of replaying the day in your head and you're like, oh my gosh, that's totally how I feel about that thing because my behavior tells me that. So there's lots of different things that you could do there. Like maybe as you think back and you reflect on your day today, you'll think about how a kid dropped their books and you helped them pick up their books, or somebody had nowhere to sit at lunch and you asked them to come sit at your lunch table, or whatever it might be. So those would be two behaviors. And then from that, you might think, like, wow, an important part of me is that I'm super helpful and I'm really nice. Or um, kind of like my attitude about others is that I should help them in times that are difficult, right? But maybe you weren't like going through your day focused on that attitude. So that's self perception theory. It just says that we look at our behavior to figure out what our attitudes are. Three factors that play into attitude development are listed kind of at the bottom of this screen. So we'll start with mere exposure effect. This one's going to come into play with relationships, which is the last part of this unit as well. So mere exposure effect says that the more that you're exposed to something, the more you come to like it. Now, this doesn't reverse, like the more you're exposed to something, the more you hate it, or the less you're exposed to something, the less you like it. It just claims what it is. The more you're exposed to something, the more you come to like it. So my personal example would be I love Pink, the artist, and I'm like obsessed with their music. I always have been. So I remember, I don't know if it was I think it was her last album that came out. I was like super excited for the album to come out, but her tickets for Chicago went on sale before her album came out. There was like one or two songs that were released. So right away, I like spent hundreds of dollars on my tickets to go see Pink in Chicago, and I hadn't even really heard the album yet. But that's just like who I am. I would always probably do that. Anyway, so I remember when her album was released, I was listening to the songs, and I'm like, I really don't love this album. Like, this kind of sucks. I had higher expectations. But then I had to get ready for the concert. So I have to listen to the album over and over again. What ended up happening was I ended up loving pretty much her entire album. So obviously I had to learn the songs so that I could like belt them out at the concert. But the more that I listened to them, and now they'll come on the radio or they'll like whatever play on my playlist, and I'm super into those songs. So the idea is just that I was exposed over and over to something. Sometimes you have that on the radio, like a song comes on the radio or comes on your playlist, and it might be an artist you typically like, and you're like, God, this song's kind of annoying. But then 2 weeks later, because they play it all the time, you're kind of like singing along to it or tapping along to it. So radio is actually tied to mere exposure effect. All right. The next two things then tie again to strength of attitude, and then they're going to look in their research at how your strength of attitude matches up to behavior. So I'll talk about that at the end. The central route to persuasion would say that the way that you formed your attitude on something was to do like a lot of research on it. So you looked for evidence, you looked for facts, you really evaluated all of the arguments. So you didn't just take somebody at their word, but instead you really did your own work to try to understand what they were talking about. Okay, so that's the central route to persuasion. So if you're going to buy a product, you're going to super, super hardcore research that product. Or if you are creating your attitude or opinion about the death penalty, you're going to do a lot of research. You're going to look at multiple aspects of that research. You're going to make sure that there aren't unbiased sources that are leading to it, and you're going to form your attitude that way. The peripheral route to persuasion is different. This is where we tune into incidental cues. And we probably do this a lot more than you guys even realize, because it would be tough to do, to basically use the central route to form your attitudes on everything. So this might be where you tune into like celebrity endorsements, or the person who's talking has like a really smooth style of speaking, so you just kind of like get caught up in it. Or you like the way that they look similar to you, or they dress similar to you, or they're really attractive, or whatever else it might be. So rather than do the research into what they're saying or claiming, you just sort of take them at face value. So this one reminds me of one of my friends. Um, and I remember we had to stay at her house not that long ago because, I don't know, something, I think we were having like floors replaced or something. And I walked into her bathroom shower and it was like a spa. She had like every product ever created. There were multiple shampoos, conditioners, face washes, face masks. I mean, everything. And I make fun of her for stuff like this all the time. So I like grabbed one of the products and walked out into the living room, and I was like, so how would I know which of these face masks to use? And I remember her saying like, "Oh my God, so that's the face mask that Jennifer Aniston uses." And she like started talking and I just laughed. And I was like, "Really? Jennifer Aniston uses Aveeno for her face wash?" So anyway, that particular friend, like she will just see an ad in a magazine or hear about something on the TV and she'll be like, "Oh my God, I have to try this." And doesn't even really research it. So that would be an example of like celebrity endorsements. So what we know about attitudes and behaviors is that the central route to persuasion would really form a stronger attitude on things than the peripheral route to persuasion would.